This generation, Elon Musk.
Hey guys. I'm gonna grab my stuff. You sit there. I'm gonna take this.
All right. Thanks for taking the time. How you doing, brother? You keeping busy?
Yeah. I mean, it's rarely a slow week. I mean, in the world as well.
Yeah.
I mean, any given week, it just seems like the things get nuttier.
It's definitely a simulation. We've agreed on this at this point.
I mean, if we are in some alien Netflix series, I think the ratings are high.
Yes. Ratings are high. How are the freedom of speech wars going? This is you've been at war for 2 years now.
Yes.
The price of freedom of speech is not cheap, is it?
I think it's like 44 billion, something like that.
Just
Round numbers.
give or take $1 billion.
Yeah, round numbers. Yeah. It's pretty nutty. There is like this weird movement to quell free speech kind of around the world, and this is something we should be very concerned about. You have to ask, like, why was the First Amendment like a high priority? It was like number one. It's because people came from countries where if you spoke freely, you would be imprisoned or killed. And they were like, well, we'd like to not have that here. Because that was terrible.
Yeah.
And actually, there's a lot of places in the world right now, if you're critical of the government, you get imprisoned or killed.
Right.
Yeah, and we'd like to not have that.
Are you
Can
concerned?
I add to that?
Yeah.
I mean, I suspect this is a receptive audience to that message.
Yeah. I think we always thought that the West was the exception to that we knew there were authoritarian places around the world, but we thought that in the West we'd have freedom of speech. And we've seen, like you said, it seems like a global movement. In Britain, you've got teenagers being put in prison for memes,
Yes.
opposing.
It's like you liked a Facebook post, throw them in the prison.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Like
popular.
people have got an actual, prison for like obscure comments on social media.
Not even shit posting yet.
Like not even.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I mean,
Let's just
like,
run- let's just run-
Pavel got thrown in prison
Right. You've got
recently.
Pavel-
And I'm like, that was pretty shook about that. I was like, what is the massive crime that?
Right. Pavel in France, and then of course we got Brazil with Judge Voldemort. That one seems like the one that impacts you the most. What's the latest on that?
Well, I guess we are trying to figure out, is there some reasonable solution in Brazil? The concern, I want to just make sure that this is framed correctly. Funny memes aside, the nature of the concern was that, at least at X Corp, we had the perception that we were being asked to do things that violated Brazilian law. So obviously we cannot, as an American company, impose American laws and values on other countries. We wouldn't get very far if we did that. But we do, think that if a country's laws are a particular way, and we're being asked to we think we're being asked to break them, then and be silent about it, then obviously that is no good. Mm-hmm. So I just want to be clear, because this sometimes comes across as Elon's trying to just be a crazy whatever billionaire and demand outrageous things from other countries. And, while that is true, in addition, there are other things that I think are, valid, which is like we obviously can't, I think any given thing that we do at X Corp, we've got to be able to explain in the light of day and not feel that it was dishonorable or, we did the wrong thing, So that's the nature of the concern. So we actually are in sort of discussions with the judicial authorities in Brazil to try to run this to ground. Like what's actually going on? Like if we're being asked to break the law, Brazilian law, then that obviously should not sit well with the Brazilian judiciary. And if we're not and we're mistaken, we'd like to understand how we're mistaken. I think that's a pretty reasonable position.
I'm a bit concerned, as your friend, that you're going to go to one of these countries, and I'm going to wake up one day and you're going to get arrested, and like I'm going to have to go bail you out or something. Like feels very acute. Like,
yes.
I mean, it's not a joke now. Like they're literally saying like, it's not just Biden saying like we have to look into that guy. Now it's become quite literal. Like this. Who was the guy who just wrote the, was it the Guardian piece about like...
Oh,
hey,
yeah. There have been 3 articles, I think in the past 3 weeks.
Robert Reich.
But it wasn't just him. It was like 3 different articles.
3 different articles,
that's a trend.
Calling for me to be imprisoned in the Guardian, Guardian of what?
What are they protecting exactly? Yeah.
Guardian of, I don't know.
Authoritarianism?
Guardian of,
Censorship?
Censorship.
But the premise here is that you bought this thing, this online forum, this communication platform, and you're allowing people to use it to express themselves. Therefore, you have to be jailed. I don't understand the logic here.
Right.
What do you think they're actually afraid of at this point? What's the motivation here?
I mean, I think if somebody's sort of trying to push a false premise on the world, then that premise can be undermined with public dialogue, then they will be opposed to public dialogue on that premise because they wish that false premise to prevail.
Right.
So that's, I think, the issue there is if they don't like the truth, then we want to suppress it. So now what we're trying to do with X Corp is I distinguish that from my son, who's also called X.
Yes. Right. You have parental goals, and then you have goals for the company.
Everything's just called X, basically.
Yes.
It's very difficult disambiguation.
The car, the sun.
Yeah, it's X everything. What we're trying to do is simply adhere to the laws in a country. So if something is illegal in the United States, or if it's illegal in Europe or Brazil or wherever it might be, then we will take it down or we'll suspend the account because we're not there to make the laws. But if speech is not illegal, then what are we doing? Okay, now we're injecting ourselves in as a censor, and where does it stop? And who decides? So, and where does that path lead? I think it leads to a bad place. So if the people in a country want the laws to be different, they should make the laws different. But otherwise, we're going to obey the law in each jurisdiction.
Right, and some of these European...
That's it. It's not more complicated than that. We're not trying to flout the law. I'm going to be clear about that. We're trying to adhere to the law. And if the laws change, we will change. And if the laws don't change, we won't. We're just literally trying to adhere to the law.
It's pretty straightforward.
Yes, it's very straightforward. And if somebody thinks we're not adhering to the law, well, they can file a lawsuit. Bingo.
Also very straightforward. Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, there are European countries that don't want people to promote Nazi propaganda.
Yes.
They have some sensitivity to it.
Well, it is illegal.
It is illegal in those countries.
It is legal.
And in those countries, if somebody puts that up, you take it down.
Yes.
But they typically file something and say, take this down. And
no, in some cases, it is just obviously illegal. Like, you don't need to file a lawsuit for, if something is just, unequivocally illegal, we can literally read the law. This violates the law. Anyone can see that. Like you don't need, like if somebody is stealing, you don't need. Let me check the law on that.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh no, They're
Except in
stealing
San
stuff.
Francisco.
Let's talk about. So
Yeah.
we had JD Vance here this morning. He did a great job. And one of the things is there's this image on X of like basically like you, Bobby, Trump, and JD are like the Avengers, I guess. And then there's another meme where you're in front of a desk where it says DOGE.
Yeah.
The Department of Governmental Efficiency.
Yes. I posted that one.
Tell us about
I made it using Grok, the Grok image generator. and I posted it.
Tell us about
and put it to my profile.
Seek for efficiency. How do you do it?
Well, I mean, I think with great difficulty. But look, it's been a long time since there was a serious effort to reduce the size of government and to remove absurd regulations.
Yeah.
And the last time there was a really concerted effort on that front was Reagan in the early 80s. So we're 40 years away from a serious effort to remove regulations that don't serve the greater good and reduce the size of government. And I think it's just, if we don't do that, then what's happening is that we get regulations and laws accumulating every year until eventually everything's illegal. And that's why we can't get major infrastructure projects done in the United States. Like if you look at the absurdity of the California high-speed rail, I think they've spent $7 billion and have a 1,600-foot segment that doesn't actually have rail in it. I mean, your tax dollars at work, I mean,
Yeah, what are we doing?
that's an expensive 1,600 feet of concrete, And I mean, I think it's like, I realize sometimes I'm perhaps a little optimistic with schedules, but, I mean, I wouldn't be doing the things I'm doing if I was, not an optimist. But at the current trend, California high-speed rail might finish sometime next century. Maybe, but probably not. We're just
We'll
gonna
have teleportation by that time. So.
Yeah, exactly. We'll just have the AI do everything at that point. So I think you really think of, the United States and many countries. It's arguably worse in the EU, as being like Gulliver tied down by a million little strings. And like any one given regulation is not that bad, but you've got a million of them, and or millions actually, and then eventually you just can't get anything done, and this is a massive tax on the consumer, on the people. It's just they don't realize that there's this massive tax in the form of irrational regulations. I'll give you a recent example that is just insane. Is that like SpaceX was fined by the EPA $140,000 for they claimed dumping potable water on the ground, drinking water. So, and we're like, this is at Starbase, and we're like, we're in a tropical thunderstorm region. That stuff comes from the sky all the time, and there was no actual harm done. It was just water to cool the launch pad during liftoff. And there's zero harm done. And they agree, yes, there's zero harm done. And we're like, okay, so there's no harm done. And but you want us to pay a $140,000 fine? It's like, yes, because you didn't have a permit. Okay. We didn't know there was a permit needed for zero harm fresh water being on the ground in a place where fresh water falls from the sky all the time.
Got it. Next to the ocean.
Next to the ocean.
Because there's a little bit of water there too.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes it rains so much the roads are flooded. So we're like, how does this make any sense?
Yeah.
And then they were like, well, we're not going to process any more of your applications for Starship launch, unless you pay this $140,000. So they just ransomed us, and we're like, okay, so we paid $140,000. But it's like, this is no good. I mean, at this rate, we're never going to get to Mars.
I mean, that's the confounding part here.
Yeah.
Is we're acting against our own self-interest. When you look at, we do have to make, putting aside fresh water, but hey, the rocket makes a lot of noise. So I'm certain there's some complaints about noise once in a while, but sometimes you want to have a party or you want to make progress, and there's a little bit of noise. Therefore, we trade off a little bit of noise for massive progress or even fun.
Yes.
So, like, when did we stop being able to make those trade-offs? But talk about the difference between California and Texas, where you and I now reside. Texas, you were able to build the Gigafactory. I remember when you got the plot of land, and then it seemed like it was less than 2 years when you had the party to open it.
Yeah. From start of construction to completion was 14 months.
14
months.
Is there anywhere on the planet that would go faster? Is like China faster than that?
China was 11 months.
Got it. So Texas, China, 11 and 14 months. California, how many months?
And just to give you a sense of size, the Tesla Gigafactory in China is 3 times the size of the Pentagon.
Which was the biggest building in America.
No, there are bigger buildings, but the Pentagon's a pretty big one.
Yeah, or it was the biggest.
In units of Pentagon, it's like 3.
Okay, 3 Pentagons and counting.
Yeah.
Got it.
In 14 months. Just the regulatory approvals in California would have taken 2 years.
Yeah.
So that's the issue.
Where do you think the regulation helps? Like for the people that will say, we need some checks and balances. We can't have some, because for every good actor like you, there'll be a bad actor. So where's that line then?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't in sort of doing a sensible deregulation and reduction in the size of government is just like be very public about it and say like which of these rules do you if the public is really excited about a rule and wants to keep it, we'll just keep it. Yeah. And here's the thing about the rules: if the rule is turns out to be a bad, we'll just put it right back. Okay, and then problem solved. It's like it's easy to add rules, but we don't actually have a process for getting rid of them. That's the issue. There's no garbage collection for rules.
When we were watching you work, David and I and Antonio, in that first month at Twitter, which was all hands on deck, and you were doing zero-based budgeting, you really quickly got the cost under control. And then miraculously, everybody said, this site will go down, and you added 50 more features. So maybe explain, because this is the first time.
Yeah, there were so many articles like this is Twitter is dead forever. There's no way it could possibly even continue at all.
It was almost like the press was
like,
rooting for you to fail.
Let's write the obituary. Like, here's the obituary.
They were all saying their goodbyes on Twitter. Remember that?
Yeah.
They were all leaving and saying their goodbyes because the site was going to melt down. And
to totally fail and
all the journalists left.
Which is if you ever want to like hang out with a bunch of hall monitors, oh my God, Threads is amazing. Every time I go over there and post, they're like, they're really triggered. But
yeah, I mean, if you like being condemned repeatedly, then for reasons that make no sense, then Threads is the way to go.
Yeah, it's really, it's the most miserable place on earth. If Disney's the happiest, this is the anti-Disney. Yeah. But if we were to go into government, you went into the Department of Education or pick the department. You've worked with a lot of them, actually.
Sure.
You can't go in there in zero-based budget. Okay, we get it. But if you could just pair 2, 3, 4, 5% of those organizations, what kind of impact could that have?
Yeah, I mean, I think we'd need to do more than that. I think
ideally, compounding every year, 2 or 3% a year. I mean, it would be better than what's happening now.
Yeah, look, I think we've if Trump wins, and obviously I suspect there are people with mixed feelings about whether that should happen, but we do have an opportunity to do kind of a once-in-a-lifetime deregulation and reduction in the size of government. Because the other thing, besides the regulations, America is also going bankrupt extremely quickly. And everyone seems to be sort of whistling past the graveyard on this one. But
they're all grabbing the silverware. Everyone's stuffing their pockets in the silverware before the Titanic sinks. Like, well,
the Defense Department budget is a very big budget. Okay, it's $1 trillion a year. DoD, Intel, it's $1 trillion. And interest payments on the national debt just exceeded the Defense Department budget. They're over $1 trillion a year, just in interest, and rising. We're adding $1 trillion to our debt, which our kids and grandkids are going to have to pay somehow, every 3 months. And then soon it's going to be every 2 months, and then every month. And then the only thing we'll be able to pay is interest. And if this is, it's just, it's just like a person at scale that has racked up too much credit card debt. This does not have a good ending. And so we have to reduce the spending.
Let me ask one question, because I've brought this up a lot, and the counter argument I hear, which I disagree with, but the counter argument I hear from a lot of politicians is if we reduce spending, because right now if you add up federal, state, and local government spending, it's between 40 and 50% of GDP. So nearly half of our economy is supported by government spending, and nearly half of people in the United States are dependent directly or indirectly on government checks, and either through contractors that the government pays, or they're employed by a government entity. So if you go in and you take too hard an axe too fast, you will have significant contraction, job loss, and recession. What's the balancing act, Elon? Just thinking realistically, because I'm 100% on board with you. The next set of steps, however, assume Trump wins and you become the chief DOGE of DOG.
like double G.
Yeah. And I think the challenge is how quickly can we go in?
Doge.
How quickly can things change? And without
I want that on my business card.
yeah, without all the contraction and job loss. Yeah. So I guess how do you really address it when so much of the economy and so many people's jobs and livelihoods are dependent on government spending?
Well, I mean, I do think it's sort of, it's a false dichotomy. It's not like no government spending is going to happen. You really have to say, like, is it the right level? And just remember that any given person, if they are doing things in a less efficient organization versus a more efficient organization, their contribution to the economy, their net output of goods and services will reduce. I mean, you've got a couple of clear examples between East Germany and West Germany, North Korea and South Korea. I mean, North Korea, they're starving. South Korea, it's like amazing.
It's the future.
The compounding effect of productivity gains. Yeah.
Yeah, it's night and day.
Yeah.
And so in the North Korea, you've got 100% government. In South Korea, you've got probably, 40% government. It's not zero. Yeah. And yet you've got a standard of living that is probably 10 times higher in South Korea. At least, exactly. And then East and West Germany, in West Germany, you had, just thinking in terms of cars, I mean, you had BMW, Porsche, Audi, Mercedes, and East Germany, which is a random line on a map. The only car you could get was a Trabant, which is basically a lawnmower with a shell on it. It was extremely unsafe. There was a 20-year wait. So you put your kid on the list as soon as they're conceived. And even then, only I think a quarter of people maybe got this lousy car. And it's just the same. So that's just an interesting example of basically the same people, different operating system. Yeah. And it's not like West Germany was some a capitalist heaven. It's quite socialist actually. So when you look, probably it was half government in West Germany and 100% government in East Germany. And again, sort of a 5 to, I'd like to call it at least a 5 to 10x standard of living difference, and even qualitatively vastly better. And it's obviously, sometimes people have these, amazingly in this modern era, this debate as to which system is better. Well, I'll tell you which system is better. The one that doesn't need to build the wall to keep people in. Okay, that's how you can tell. Okay. Yeah. It's a dead giveaway.
Spoiler alert.
Dead giveaway.
Are they climbing the wall
Dead
to get out or come in?
You have to build a barrier to keep people in. That is the bad system. It wasn't West Berlin that built the wall. Okay. They were like, anyone who wants to flee West Berlin, go ahead.
Speaking of walls.
So, and if you look at sort of the flux of boats from Cuba, there's a large number of boats from Cuba, and there's a bunch of free boats that anyone can take
They're
to
empty
go
on the way
back to Cuba.
Yeah.
Like,
Plenty of seats.
there's like, hey, wow, an abandoned boat. I could use this boat to go to Cuba where they have communism. Awesome.
Yes.
And yet nobody picks up those boats and does it. Amazing.
Giving this a lot of thought.
Yeah.
Wait, so your point is jobs will be created. If we cut government spending
Yes.
in half,
Yes.
jobs will be created fast enough to make up for, right, just to count.
Yes. No, obviously, I'm not suggesting that people, have like immediately tossed out with no severance and can't pay their mortgage. There needs to be some reasonable off ramp where.
Transition plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a reasonable off ramp where they're still earning, they're still receiving money, but have like I don't know a year or two to find jobs in the private sector, which they will find, and then they will be in a different operating system. Again, you can see the difference. East Germany was incorporated into West Germany. Living standards in East Germany rose dramatically.
Well, in 4 years, if you could shrink the size of the government with Trump, what would be a good target? Just in terms of like ballpark.
I mean, are you trying to get me assassinated before this even happens?
No. Pick a low number.
I mean, there's that old phrase, go postal. I mean, it's like they might.
Yeah.
Of me.
So we'll keep the post office.
I mean, I'm going to need a hell of a security detail, guys.
Yes.
I mean, the sheer number of disgruntled workers, former government employees, is quite a scary number. I mean, I might not make it.
I was saying low digits every year for 4 years would be palatable. Yeah, and I like your idea of an off-ramp.
But the thing is that if it's not done, like if you have a once in a lifetime or once in a generation opportunity, and you don't take serious action, and then you have 4 years to get it done, and then if it doesn't get done, then
How serious is Trump about this? Like you've talked to him about it, yeah?
yeah, I think he is very serious about it.
Got it.
And no, I think actually the reality is that if we get rid of nonsense regulations and shift people from the government sector to the private sector, we will have immense prosperity, and I think we will have a golden age in this country, and it'll be fantastic.
Can we talk about SpaceX? You have a bunch of critical milestones coming up.
Yeah, in fact, there's a very exciting launch that is maybe happening tonight. So if the weather is holding up, then I'm going to leave here, head to Cape Canaveral for the Polaris Dawn mission, which is a private mission funded by Jared Isaacman, and he's awesome guy. And this will be the first time, the first commercial spacewalk, and it'll be at the highest altitude since Apollo. So it's the furthest from Earth that anyone's gone. Yeah.
And what comes after that? Let's assume that's successful. And
I sure hope so, man.
No pressure.
Yeah, we're absolutely astronaut safety is, man. If I had like all the wishes I could save up, that'd be the one to put it on. So, space is dangerous. So the next milestone after that would be the next flight of Starship, which Starship the next flight of Starship is ready to fly. We are waiting for regulatory approval.
Yeah.
It really should not be possible to build a giant rocket faster than the paper can move from one desk to another.
That stamp was really hard. Approved.
Yeah.
You ever see that movie Zootopia?
Approved.
You ever see that movie Zootopia? There's like a sloth.
He's coming in for the approval.
Yeah, and then he accidentally tell a joke, and then I was like, oh no, this is
No,
gonna,
here we
this is
go.
gonna take a long time.
Sorry.
But yeah, the Zootopia, the funny thing is like, so I went to the DMV about, I don't know, a year later after Zootopia, and to get my license renewal, and the guy in an exercise of incredible self-awareness had the sloth from Zootopia in his
In his cube?
in his cube, and he was actually swift.
Yeah. with the
So-
mandate, beat the sloth.
Yeah, no.
Personal
now.
agency. Personal agency.
No, I mean, sometimes people like think the government is more competent than it is. I'm not saying that there aren't competent people in the government. They're just in an operating system that is inefficient. Once you move them to a more efficient operating system, their output is dramatically greater, as we've seen. When East Germany was reintegrated with West Germany, and the same people were vastly more prosperous with a basically half-capitalist operating system. So, but I mean, for a lot of people, their maybe most direct experience with the government is the DMV. And then the important thing to remember is that the government is the DMV at scale.
Right.
That's the government.
Got the mental picture.
How much do you want to scale it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Elon, sorry, can you go back to Chamath's question on Starship? So you announced just the other day Starship going to Mars in 2 years. And
By the way.
Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then 4 years for a crewed aspirational launch in the next window.
I mean,
and how much is the government involved?
I'm
Is NASA
not
involved?
saying like set your watch by these, but these, based on our current progress, where with Starship we were able to successfully reach orbital velocity twice. We were able to achieve soft landings of the booster and the ship in water, and that's despite the ship having half its flaps cooked off. So you can see the video on the X platform. It's quite exciting. We think we'll be able to to launch reliably and repeatedly and quite quickly. And the fundamental holy grail breakthrough for rocketry, the fundamental breakthrough that is needed for life to become multiplanetary is a rapidly reusable, reliable rocket. RRR. Yeah. With a pirate somehow. Throw a pirate in there. So with Starship is the first rocket design where success is one of the possible outcomes with full reusability. So for any given project, you have to say, this is the circle, to about Venn diagrams. Here's a circle, and it is success, the success dot in the circle, is success in the set of possible outcomes. That, sounds pretty obvious, but there are often projects where success is not in the set of possible outcomes. And so Starship not only is full reusability in the set of possible outcomes, it is being proven with each launch, and I'm confident it will succeed. It's simply a matter of time. And if we can get some improvement in the speed of regulation, we could actually move a lot faster. So that would be very helpful. And in fact, if something isn't done about reducing regulation and sort of speeding up approvals, and to be clear, I'm not talking about anything unsafe. It's simply the processing of the safe thing can be done at as fast as the rocket is built, not slower. Then we could become a spacefaring civilization and a multi-planet species, and be out there among the stars in the future. And there's, it's just very, it's incredibly important that we have things that we find inspiring, that you look to the future and say the future is going to be better than the past, things to look forward to. And like kids are a good way to assess this. Like, what are kids fired up about? And if you could say, you could be an astronaut on Mars. You could maybe one day go beyond the solar system. We could make Star Trek, Starfleet Academy real. That is an exciting future. That is inspiring. You need things that move your heart.
Right. Yeah. Fuck yeah. Let's do it. Fuck.
Yes.
I mean,
like life can't just be about solving one miserable problem after another. There's got to be things that you look forward to as well.
Yeah. And do you think you might have to move it to a different jurisdiction and to move faster? I've always wondered if
Rocket technology is considered an advanced weapons technology, so we can't just go do it,
in another country.